Good day, everyone. Welcome to episode 33 of Reading with Ayo. My name is Ayo Lawrence, and today I want to talk about culture. I've been having a lot of conversation recently around the word culture and what it means to different people, leaders within my organization, outside of my organization, my friends, my colleagues. And, there's been a lot of conversations around the word culture. And most of the time when I talk to leaders, they always say we want to create the right culture, or hey, some friends will tell me, oh, we're not creating the right culture, and people always use the word create the right culture, and the word create didn't really sound well with me because I just felt like culture cannot be created. I think culture can only be replicated. People might just say, "What do you mean, Ayo?" Um, for me, culture is not do what I say. Culture is do what I do. If you're not doing something and you want someone to do it, it's that is hypocrisy. That's you've been an hypocrite. And when there was this there's this show I used to work back in Nigeria. I forgot the name of the show, but it was when I was really young. And the father used to beat his son and say, "Hey, don't lie. And I don't want you to lie. Lying is not good." And he used to beat his son, and his son would continuously lie. Until one day when he got tired, he's asking his son, "Why do you lie?" He said, "Dad," and the son looked at him and said, "Dad, I learned from you." And he said, "How? You remember yesterday?" The son said, "Remember yesterday when you told me to go tell your friends you're not at home while you were home? Is that not lying?" And he started giving him examples of the ways his father had told him to go lie. And he said, "Why am I not going to lie when I see you do it all the time?" And that really, brought the story around culture for me. Me growing up in Nigeria, I used to see my parents when they talk to elders. They used to use certain pronouns to talk to their elders, and they use certain pronouns to talk to their mates, and it's part of our language, right? And also respect is a big part of our culture in Nigeria. So if you're talking to somebody, an elder, you use or if you're talking to you to your mate, you can use certain pronouns as well. I'm not going to go into my language and dive into it, but there's a different pronoun for elders and a different pronouns for people that are your mates. Even when you're talking to people, that your friends, you can call them by name, but if they're older than you, even if they're not your uncles or your auntie, they're not your uncle, they're not your relatives, you use words like uncle something, auntie something, or brother something, or sister something, just to elaborate the fact that they're older than you, even though they're not your family. So you don't, but that thing has to go before their name. You cannot just put their names, in front of that. But when I moved to the US, it was different, right? When you come to the US, everybody calls each other by name. That was one big struggle for me. It was actually a big struggle for me. But that was the culture here, and I had to replicate it. I cannot come here and say, like in an official setting back in Nigeria, if somebody's older than you, call them Mr. Something, Mrs. Something. But here, everybody uses their first name. So I just I started calling people their name. John, Rebecca, Lakeisha, Dante. Just started using people's different names, even though they're older than me. But one of the things I've seen in it, that's the culture here. And if I go outside of the culture here, that means I'm not respecting that culture. But the thing about it, I have to replicate it. I didn't have to create it. But so what I mean about culture being replicated, it starts from the leadership. Leaders create the culture they want to see. If you want to create a culture of a feedback culture, you have to be able to give feedback, and you have to be able to ask for feedback. If your employees are not giving you feedback, call them, ask them, "Hey, how did I do that?" Let them be able to be comfortable to be able to give you feedback. If you want to create a culture of communication, then you have to communicate. If you want to create a culture of collaboration, then across leadership, you have to be able to collaborate with other people within your organization. If you are not collaborating and your employees are saying you're not collaborating within each other, they're not going to collaborate with each other as well. So a culture starts from the leadership. And that's why I had to express that story at the beginning. The father had to create the culture. If he didn't want his son to lie, he shouldn't be lying in front of the son. And that is a great example of what I learned coming in terms of culture. But to buttress this, I read this book called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. He's a great writer, and he wrote, a great story, a great book. And he talked about culture in three different aspects. I like call the culture code, and they talked about, hey, building safety into culture, and also, sharing vulnerability, being vulnerable, and also the last one is, having a purpose for that. That's a culture. Having a purpose. To share this, I'm going to use the aspect of, coming here and, people calling each other names. There is safety in calling people's names and being able to call their name, because you feel connected. If I didn't call people there by their name and start using, hey, Mr. Something, everybody will look at me like, who's this? I can never belong to that community. I can never be built safe. People will look at me weird. So if I come to the organization and call somebody, hey, Mr. Something or Mrs. Something, I like, that's weird. Or I call somebody auntie something or brother something because they're older than me. That's the culture I had back home. I had to replicate the culture back here because this is where I am. So that's the only way I can belong to the society. And people need to belong in your group, in your teams. You have to create that connection, the things that connect the team. You have to create that. And the way you can do it is by sharing vulnerability. I think leaders need to be vulnerable. Yeah, and when I mean vulnerable, I don't mean cry or share your life history. Just being able to show your weakness. There's this leader in my organization. I love her so much. You're like, me and her were talking about something one day, and she said, I don't know, but I don't know that. Are you willing to share and teach me that and share that information with me? And that has actually opened up a lot of relationship between me and her, because like she was able to be vulnerable and tell me, hey, I don't know this. So let your employees see your weakness. Let them see who you are. Let them be able to be vulnerable with you. I think it's a big skill, but most leaders, want to be the strong man. I know everything. I can do everything. I want to make all the decisions. You can't. If you want to create a culture, you need to be vulnerable. You need to let people, if you want to create a culture of empowerment, you need to be vulnerable enough to let go of things and let your employees make decisions, and not being able to be there. Just say, I trust you. Go and make the decision. And if you will see the result people will bring out. If you want to create a culture of feedback, ask for feedback. If you want to create a culture of collaboration, start collaborating. And also, there has to be a purpose, in creating culture. Satya Nadella said, in his book, It Refresh. And one of the things I loved about it, he said, I want to create a culture of collaboration within Microsoft. I want to create a culture of empathy within Microsoft. And when people ask him, and I've watched a lot of interviews, and when they ask him, what do you mean by empathy? I want to be able to create product that's going to serve people's needs. He talked about his son. He was very vulnerable in talking about his son and the struggles they have with him. He said, I want to create things for people like him as well. I want to create programs or products that's going to help organizations. I want to create products that's going to help people with disabilities. I want to create products that's going to help students learn better. And also I want to collaborate. Before Microsoft used to be, our company. Now they're collaborating with other companies. Your other products within, you can now have a Microsoft product in iOS and Apple products. And like that actually opened up the companies resources, and their stocks went up, and the company is way better than it used to be because of those two things. They started creating products. Like my organization, we use a lot of Microsoft products now, and it's like, man, this is so cool. I was going to a country one time and I used the Microsoft translator to translate. And some of these things, I think we need to be able to understand what our culture is, and our culture is what is going to take us to the next level. But the leaders have to be the ones to create that culture. I think the leaders have to be the ones to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and be the person to start doing that thing. Because if you want to create a diverse and inclusive environment, make sure when you're making decisions, make sure it's diverse and inclusive. When, if you want to make sure everybody's equal, make sure everybody's equal. Don't give one person, one group of people more opportunities and responsibilities. Share the responsibilities within your employees. So if you want to create a culture, it starts from leadership. But also, I'm going to, talk about followers as well. If leaders are doing this, you got to follow. If they're telling you, hey, if they're asking for feedback and you're not giving it to them, then it's on you. It's just like somebody giving you $100 to go spend and you're not spending it. Whose fault is it? It's your fault. So if the leaders are expressing, collaboration, and they're doing a collaborator and you're not collaborating to get results and get value, then that's on you. If the leaders are empowering you and you're not taking that power to make decisions, to bring value to the organization, that's on you. So employees as well, you have a role to play, but leaders, I think you're the first line of action. Culture is not something you create. So culture is an action word. You have to act. Culture is something you need to act on. And when you act, your employees replicate and you build that culture for your organization. Oh, I'll recommend the book, The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. I think it's a great book and I think you guys will enjoy it. And there's a story in there that I want to talk about. And I'm just going to end with this story, right? They gave a group of kindergartners a project, and they gave the same project to a group of Harvard MBA students, graduating MBA students, and they said, build a tower with the building blocks. And do you know who won? The kindergartners, because these guys look at themselves and they started telling each other what to do. They started collaborating and they started building. But the MBA students, they still graduates, they were looking for who knows these things. They weren't talking to each other. They just started, they weren't free to express themselves. They were not building safety into it. They were not vulnerable. They were not, building a purpose. But these guys knew how much they wanted to build this. They started going. They started saying, "Oh, this one broke. Let's do it this way." And they started talking to each other. So the kindergartners won. So we have to build that culture if you want to be that kindergartners. If you want to win. And my son as well. I learned from him a lot. And he did. When he's playing games with his friends, I usually watch, and they will start sharing what to do and tell, hey, don't do it like that, do it like this. And they start telling each other, even when they're competing against each other. And one day I asked my son, why are you sharing your moves? You're competing against. They said, oh, he shares his moves too. That's how we get better. I was like, wow. So we need to build a culture of, building a culture involves all of us, but it starts with the leadership. So I want to just talk about culture. If you have any comments or anything about what I said that you want to talk about, please write a comment below. I want to talk about this because I think this is so important. And if you want to, talk to me about it, please share, talk to me in the comments. I want to hear from you. And thank you for listening. Go read The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, and I'll talk to you later and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.